What kind of man leaves a woman in a storm to die? That was the question sitting heavy in Eli Mercer's mind the night everything changed. The wind came rolling down from the mountains like it carried a grudge. It slammed against the pine walls of Eli's cabin and pushed ice through every crack it could find. The roof trembled, the shutters rattled, snow blew sideways across the valley. No decent soul would be caught outside in weather like this. Only a fool, or someone running from something worse. Eli sat close to the iron stove. He worked a needle through a torn saddle strap, his hands steady, even though the cold crept around his boots. After 35 winters in the Wyoming Territory, he knew storms didn't listen to complaints. They came howling whether a man liked it or not. All a person could do was stay warm, keep busy, and hope the roof stayed on. The coffee boiled dark on the stovetop. A pot of thick bean soup simmered in the back. Outside, the storm screamed, shaking the cabin like a giant wanted to tear it apart. Eli barely looked up. Winters here were cruel, but he was used to cruel. The first knock was faint, not much louder than a branch hitting wood. He ignored it. Trees were always dropping in storms, but the second knock was sharp enough to make him set down his needle. No one traveled in weather like this unless danger was right behind them. And danger out here usually finished what it chased. He grabbed his Winchester from the peg over the door and moved quiet. Snow blew in fine white sheets under the frame. He cracked the door open against the wind. A woman stood there like the storm itself had spit her out. Her blue wool dress was frozen stiff like boards. Snow clung to her eyelashes. Her hair was one tangled mess of ice. Her face was so pale he could barely tell she was alive. One shaking hand clutched a small carpet bag, like it was the last thing she owned in this world. She looked ready to fall where she stood. Eli didn't waste time with questions. Questions could wait. Frostbite couldn't. He grabbed her arm, cold as iron under the wet wool, and pulled her inside. The storm tried to rip the door out of his grasp, but he forced it shut and dropped the bar in place. She stood there shivering so hard her teeth clicked. Her lips were blue. Her breath came in small gasps. She was half frozen and half scared, and both were trying to claim her. Eli turned his back and pulled his spare flannel shirt off a peg. "Change out of those wet clothes," he said. "Fast as you can. Wet cloth will kill you quicker than a bullet." He heard the carpet bag hit the floor. Heard her struggling with frozen buttons. He fed more wood into the stove, giving her whatever small bit of privacy the one-room cabin allowed. When the rustling stopped, he turned. She was wrapped in his flannel shirt, the sleeves hanging long past her hands. Her frozen dress lay in a sad pile at her feet. She still shook like her bones were rattling inside her. He took a wool blanket from his bed and wrapped it around her shoulders. "Sit by the stove," he said, guiding her to the nearest chair. "Drink this." He handed her coffee. Her hands shook so bad she nearly spilled it, but some color came back into her face as she swallowed. He ladled her a bowl of pea and pork soup and watched her eat like she had forgotten what food tasted like. Only when the bowl was empty did he ask, "Why were you out in weather that could kill a horse?" She lifted her eyes, green eyes, tired but steady. "My name is Margaret Doyle," she said. "I came from Boston to marry a man named Owen Blackledge. He met me at the station, took one look at me, decided I wouldn't do. Left me at Roland Station with a single coach fare home, said the agreement was done." Eli stared at her. Owen Blackledge was his neighbor, rich, cruel. A man who measured everything in profit. A man who never threw away anything he could use. "You walked from the station?" Eli asked. She nodded. "The coach won't run till the storm clears. Might be a week," the station master said. "My fare wasn't enough to rent a room. I didn't have anywhere else to go." No tremble in her voice. No begging, just plain truth given without pride or shame. Eli respected that. "Mail-order bride?" he asked. "Was," she said. "Now I'm just someone who sold every bit of her old life to marry a stranger who changed his mind." The wind slammed against the cabin, the walls shook. Snow blew hard against the window. Eli stood, checking the shutters. "You can stay here until the storm breaks," he said. "This cabin's warm and safe." She pulled the blanket tight. I can work for my keep, cook, sew, mend. I don't want charity. Nobody said anything about charity, he answered. Storm like this, helping is just the Christian thing to do. Something flickered in her eyes, maybe hurt, maybe disbelief. Owen Blackledge goes to church every Sunday, she whispered. Eli didn't bother turning that into a conversation. Owen's brand of church wasn't his concern. You take the bed, he said. I'll sleep by the stove. I couldn't, she said. You could, he said, and you will. I've slept on the ground more nights than I've slept in a bed. She stared at him a moment, searching for something. Maybe danger, maybe kindness, maybe reason to trust. Thank you, Mr. Mercer. Eli, he said. We aren't formal out here, quote. She gave a small nod. He turned away, letting her settle. He banked the fire, checked the door, set things in order like he always did. When he finally lay down near the stove, wrapped in his buffalo robe, he could hear her breathing. Still shaky, still tired, still alive. The storm kept screaming. Snow hammered the roof. Cold pushed against the door. But inside the cabin, there was warmth, there was safety, and something else he hadn't expected. A woman's voice, soft in the dark. Eli, why didn't you ask more questions about why he really sent me away? Eli watched the stove light flicker. Because whatever reason he had, he said, it wasn't about you not being suitable. Silence filled the room, heavy, careful. Then she whispered something so small he almost missed it. Do you truly think I'm worth sheltering? Eli closed his eyes. I think, he said, you're alive. And that's worth a lot out here. The storm raged on, but the cabin held, and something quiet and new settled between two strangers who hadn't meant to meet at all. The storm passed in the night, but the cold stayed behind like a warning. When dawn came, the world outside Eli's cabin lay buried under white. Snow pressed high against the windows, soft as wool, deep as secrets. Inside, the fire burned low but steady. The smell of biscuits rose from the stove. Eli moved quiet, rebuilding the fire, careful not to wake the woman sleeping in his bed. Margaret woke anyway. She sat up slow, his mother's quilt wrapped around her, hair falling in loose chestnut waves. For a moment she looked confused, caught between the life she left behind and the one she had stumbled into. Storm's breaking, Eli said without turning. Roads won't clear for days. Breakfast is on the table. She came barefoot across the wooden floor, still wearing his flannel shirt. The quilt hung around her shoulders like a cape. Her eyes were clearer this morning, less frightened, more determined. They ate in quiet, biscuits and gravy, black coffee, the kind of food a body needed after nearly freezing to death. When they finished, she stood and began clearing the plates. I meant what I said last night, she said. I'll work to earn my place. This is a small cabin, Eli replied. Everyone works, that's not earning. That's living. She washed the dishes with careful hands. He watched the way she organized everything without asking where things belonged. She didn't waste movement. She didn't complain. Whatever kind of life she came from in Boston, she was proving she could stand the hard parts of this one. By mid-morning, she asked to see the barn. Storm did a number on the drifts, Eli warned, handing her his extra coat, paths deep. I need to move, she said. If I sit still, my thoughts get too loud. So they stepped out into the bright white world. Snow came up to her knees, but she pushed through. Eli walked beside her, ready to help but not offering unless she needed it. Inside the barn, the animals stood warm in their stalls, patient eyes, steaming breath. Maggie smiled at the sight, a real smile. It shifted something inside Eli without asking permission. This one's close, he said, resting a hand on the flank of a pregnant heifer. Maybe tomorrow? She's beautiful, Maggie said. She's profitable, Eli replied out of habit. Maggie smirked. You can say beautiful. It won't break your cowboy code. He gave a small huff of a laugh. Fine. She's beautiful and profitable. Maggie's laugh filled the barn like sunlight through cracks. The next days settled into a quiet rhythm, a kind of winter partnership they hadn't planned but couldn't escape. She mended his shirts while he fixed broken tools. She made bread starter. He taught her how to feed the cattle and check the fences. They moved around each other like two people learning an unspoken dance. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was comfortable, needed. But nights were the hardest. The cold seeped into the cabin until the nails popped in the walls. Maggie tried to sleep in the bed alone, but by midnight, her teeth chattered so hard Eli heard it through his buffalo robe. "This is nonsense," Eli finally said. "We'll freeze apart." "I can't take your bed," she whispered. "I'm not offering my bed," he said, "just warmth." He sat on top of the covers. She slid close under the quilts. The buffalo robe draped over both of them. Their shoulders touched, their breaths mingled. No impropriety, no secret intentions. Just two people trying not to die of cold. "Better?" he asked. "Yes," she whispered. But she trembled still, so he wrapped an arm around her shoulders, steady and careful as if touching something breakable. The wind howled. The fire hissed. Snow tapped the windows like restless fingers. And in that small bed, under layers of wool and fear and thawing trust, something shifted between them. Something neither dared name. By dawn, she had fallen asleep with her head on his shoulder. When she woke and pulled away, embarrassed, he didn't say a word, just stoked the fire and started coffee. But all day, when their hands brushed, neither flinched. On the fourth morning after feeding the cattle, Eli saw riders coming down the trail. 4 horses. One man at the front he recognized even before the sun hit his fancy saddle. Owen Blackledge. "Inside," Eli said low. Maggie didn't argue. She had seen enough of Owen's cruelty to sense danger without explanation. Eli stepped onto the porch as the riders stopped. Owen had the look of a man who believed the world owed him something. He touched his hat brim as if greeting a friend. "Heard you're harboring stolen property, Mercer." Eli leaned against the doorframe, relaxed but ready. His rifle stood within reach, but his hand stayed away from it. "Nothing's stolen here except the piece you're disturbing," Eli said. Owen's jaw tightened. "My bride's gone missing." "She's not your bride," Eli replied. "You wrote that yourself." Sheriff Amos Hale shifted in his saddle, looking uncomfortable. "Owen says she pressured him. Says the paper isn't legal." Just then the cabin door opened. Maggie stepped out, wearing her mended blue dress, hair pinned neat. She looked calm, strong, ready. "I am not property," she said. "Not his, not anyone's." Owen turned red. "You owe me." "I paid." "You paid fair," she said, handing the folded paper to the sheriff. "And then you threw me away." Sheriff Hale read the paper. His eyes narrowed. "Owen, seems clear you ended the agreement yourself." Owen tried to speak. Maggie didn't let him. "You left me in a blizzard," she said. "Do not stand here pretending you own what you abandoned." Silence hit the valley like a stone dropped in snow. Then Owen's hand drifted toward his gun belt. Eli stepped forward, slow, steady. "Careful," he said. "Don't threaten someone standing on my porch." The moment stretched tight. The sheriff spoke first. "Miss Doyle, are you here of your own will?" "I am." "Has Mr. Mercer taken liberties?" "None." The sheriff nodded. "Then there's no crime." Owen glared at them both like he wished the law was different. "This isn't over," he said. "Then you better think hard before you make your next mistake," Eli said. Owen turned his horse and rode off, throwing snow behind him like anger trailing in white arcs. When he was gone, Maggie sank onto the porch chair, shaking for the first time since the storm. "He'll make trouble," she whispered. "Let him," Eli said. "But you did good." "You stood your ground." Quote. Her eyes lifted to his. "I was terrified." "Didn't show," he answered, "and that's what matters." She looked at him then, really looked, and he felt it like heat rising under his skin. The storm outside might have passed, but another kind of storm had just begun. The days after Owen's visit felt heavy, like the valley itself was holding its breath. The snow melted slow, revealing fence lines bent from the storm, broken branches scattered like bones, and tracks of men who came with threats instead of kindness. Even with clear skies, trouble hung over the mountains like a storm waiting its turn. Maggie felt it too. She tried to hide it. Busy hands, steady voice. But Eli saw the way she checked the windows more than before. Saw how she paused in the doorway, listening for horses. He didn't call her on it. Fear needed space, same as courage. One cold morning, they found a dead chicken on the porch. No animal tracks, no blood trail. A human message. Maggie stared at it, jaw tightening. "He wants me gone," she said. "Wants to scare me into leaving." Eli buried the bird without a word. But when he came inside, his face was set, firm as oak. "We're going to town today," he said. "Need supplies. And you need fresh air outside this trouble." Maggie didn't argue. It was time to face the world again. Sweetwater Town sat quiet under pale winter sun. The streets held only a few wagons, a few bundled figures, wood smoke drifting from rooftops. But the silence felt heavy, like the whole town had been waiting for her to show her face. Maggie walked beside Eli toward the general store, holding her carpet bag tight. People watched them, some with pity, some with curiosity, some with judgment sharp enough to slice. Mrs. Harmon, the store owner, narrowed her eyes the moment they stepped inside. "What do you need?" she asked, stiff as a fence post. "Flour," Maggie said. "Salt, thread, and yeast if you have any." Mrs. Harmon turned her back and began gathering the items without a word. Two other women standing near the fabric bolts whispered openly, loud enough to be heard. "That's the mail-order bride he stole," one said. "Living in Eli Mercer's cabin." The other replied, "Scandalous!" Maggie kept her chin lifted, though her hands trembled. She placed coins on the counter. Mrs. Harmon sniffed. "We don't extend credit to women of uncertain situation." "I'm paying cash," Maggie said, from teaching Mrs. Johnson's girls their letters. The whispering women fell silent at that. Mrs. Harmon swept the coins into her till like she didn't want to touch them. Before Maggie could reply, the door opened with a cheerful jingle. "Margaret, dear," called Mrs. Dr. Patterson, her gray hair neat under her bonnet, her voice warm enough to chase away winter. "I've been meaning to thank you for helping with little Robbie Garrett's arm. You saved him so much pain." Every woman in the store froze. Maggie blinked in surprise. "Anyone would have done the same, ma'am." "No," Mrs. Patterson said firmly. "Not anyone, but you did. And that speaks to character far more than gossip." She turned to Mrs. Harmon. "Put Miss Doyle's items on my account." "That's not," Maggie began. "It is," Mrs. Patterson said. "Charity is meant for the deserving, and you are exactly that." Mrs. Harmon's mouth pinched, but she nodded and tallied the items. When they left the store, Maggie let out a shaky breath. "I didn't expect that," she said. "Kindness comes quiet," Eli replied, "but it comes." But trouble came loud. As they reached the edge of town, Eli saw something that made his stomach drop. Horses. 4 of them. Headed straight toward the cabin's direction. "Maggie," he said low, "we need to move." They hurried to their wagon. Snow crunched under the wheels. When they reached Eli's land, they found the north fence cut clean through. 3 posts knocked down. Wire curled back. A message far louder than a dead chicken. "He's escalating," Maggie said. "What do you want me to do?" Eli looked across the white field, jaw tense. "I want you to stay alive," he said. "That's what I want." That night, they argued quietly, not in anger but fear. "I should leave," Maggie said. "Go east or to another town. If I stay, he'll keep coming. And if you leave," Eli said, "he'll win." Quote, "This is bigger than winning," she said. "This is about safety." He stepped closer, voice steady. "You're safe here, with me." "How long?" she whispered. "How long until he burns the cabin, or shoots the window, or shoots you?" Eli didn't look away. "Then we face it together." Her eyes filled but didn't fall. "Why are you risking this for me?" "Because someone should," he said. "And I won't let him rewrite your life." Silence wrapped around them like another storm. Finally, Maggie whispered, "Teach me." "Teach you what?" "To survive this," she said. "Teach me to shoot." He stared at her a long moment. a Boston schoolteacher, asking to hold a rifle. Fear had changed her, but courage was taking the lead. "All right," he said. "We start tomorrow." The next days became a different kind of rhythm. Eli taught Maggie to hold the Winchester steady, taught her to breathe out slow, taught her to squeeze the trigger, not yank it. Snow kicked up with each shot. Her shoulder ached. Her hands shook at first. But she kept trying, jaws set in pure stubbornness. By the third day, she hit the tin can 3 times out of 5. "Not bad for a girl from Boston," Eli said. "Not bad for anyone," she said. He smiled at that. When young Tommy Bright rode up the following evening, breathless and red-cheeked, they knew something had shifted again. "I came to warn you," he said. "Owen's spreading it all over town. Says Eli stole his bride. Says you're living in sin. Says he's going to the judge." Eli's jaw clenched. Maggie's face drained pale. "There's one way to stop the talk," Eli said slowly. Maggie looked up. "Marriage." "Yes, would make things legal, safe, easier." She took a breath that shook at the end. "Is that what you want, Eli?" He looked at her, really looked, at the woman who walked through a blizzard, who stood on his porch and faced a man who abandoned her, who baked bread in his cabin and laughed in his barn, who slept beside him in winter cold, trusting him with the space between them. "No," Eli said softly, "not like this, not because of him. If we marry, it'll be because we choose it, not because we're scared." Maggie nodded, relief and sadness both in her eyes. "Then we wait," she said. "Let the town talk. Let them wonder. When we choose on our terms." He nodded. Outside, the wind whispered against the windows like fingers brushing glass. Inside, 2 people sat, in quiet understanding, the space between them no longer cold or fearful, but warm, waiting, and full of something growing stronger than winter, something worth fighting for. Spring came slow, but it came. The snow melted, the creek ran high, grass pushed through thawed ground in bright green patches. And with the first warm rain came something neither of them expected. A knock on the cabin door, a knock they had been waiting for, a knock that would change everything. But when Eli opened the door and saw who stood there, cold fear crawled up his spine. Owen Blackledge. And he wasn't alone. He had 3 men behind him and fire in his eyes. "This ends today," Owen said, "one way or another." Eli didn't reach for his rifle, not yet, because Maggie stepped forward, standing beside him, calm and steady. And Eli knew, whatever came next, they would face it together, hand in hand, side by side, exactly as they had chosen.